a PR axle overhead press 275. Stabilize, brace, push back, and up. Very nice. I've squatted over 750 pounds. I've benched over 500 pounds numerous times. And I've deadlifted over 750 pounds. Welcome, my YouTube family. My name is Brendan Todd. I'm an all-natural strength athlete. I just overhead press 275, strict. No push press, no split jerk, no knee bend, a strict 275 overhead press. And today I'm going to take you through exactly what I did in order to do so, and what I'm planning to do in order to overhead press 3 plates as a natural athlete. Before we get into the technique, the frequency, the accessory exercises, you guys need to know a little bit more about me. As you have heard, I've squatted over 700 pounds numerous times, benched over 500 pounds numerous times, deadlift over 700 pounds numerous times, and believe it or not, I did this all as a natural, as I am still a natural. And I'm still progressing, making gains over gains over gains, days after day, weeks after weeks, years after years, because it's my mission to explore the untapped, unlimited human potential to get stronger. And one of those areas that I was lacking in was my overhead press. I didn't want to be confined so much to the big 3. I wanted to be strong overall. I've signed up for strongman competitions and I'm competing at nationals this year. Signed up for a max chin-up and dip competitions, United States street lifting, all right, where we do the max chin-up and max dip for 1 rep. And I've signed up for a strict curl competition. Again, all as a natural athlete. But when I was looking at my strength lifts, I realized there was one area that was extremely lacking, and that was my overhead press. Now, I weigh about 255 pounds when I wake up in the morning. So the first day I overhead pressed, I could only get about 255 pounds, which for most people, that's fine, that's good. That's 1 times body weight overhead press. That's a really good lift, but it's not good enough for me. We need more. I set my eyes on 3 plates. And this past week, I was lucky enough to hit 275. I shouldn't really say lucky enough. I grinded hard. I implemented with my coach proper programming, recovery, and dedicated training in order to hit that number. And I want to show you a couple strategies we used in order to increase my overhead press. Let's get right into it. The overhead press. First up, technique. In order to talk about technique, we need to talk about bar path. Now, our bar path is not like that of the squat or the deadlift. It's more like that of the bench press, where we're doing an inverted J. This is your J, this is your inverted J. Starting position, you're pressing back and then up to the top position. So this is your starting position right here. The bar is under your chin. If I just press straight up, not only am I going to be hit my head, but it's also not a very strong position to be in. So I need to move my head out of the way, and I want to embrace a bit of a lean back, okay? In order to do so, I want to squeeze my glutes, tighten my back, lean back slightly, and press the weight up. As that bar clears my head, I want to get in a better position by pushing my head forward through the weight and pressing out to lockout. Now, everyone's technique might look a little different, and this generally is going to be the best way of doing so. But trust me, I know plenty of strongmen who are just absolutely massive on the overhead press, and all they do is basically they look like they lean back the whole time and they incline press it up. As far as competition goes for strongman or strength lifting, looks like you can do whatever you want in order to get that weight up. So it doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you kind of have to lean back in the beginning. And lockout, we need our shoulders, elbows, wrists, and torso all in one line. Now, how frequently should you be overhead pressing? The overhead press. Second, frequency of the lift. All right, frequency of the overhead press. Now, this is always going to be individual. Just like the technique, just like everything in lifting, there's always just going to be individual outliers who can overhead press every day of the week, and some that get great gains overhead pressing once every 10 days, okay? But in general, you're probably going to be overhead pressing either 1 to 3 times a week. Now, this all depends on the recoverability, how intense that session is, and the stimulus you get from that session. Let's say you're a big boy. You're already pretty strong. And when you overhead press, it's like, it is an event. You're putting everything you got into it. And let's say you're also training from some other lifts. You might only be overhead pressing once a week. Now, let's say you're a bit on the weaker side. Maybe your overhead press is the only lift that you care about. Maybe you are really strong, but you can recover really well. You might be on the other end of the spectrum 3 times or more a week. But for most people, I would generally put them between 2 to maybe 3 times a week, okay? The reason I say and maybe 3 times a week is if you're relatively new, you're still learning the technique of the overhead press, the weights you're lifting are not all that fatiguing, you can probably get away with a little bit more. But 2 times a week, one day being your primary overhead press day, and the secondary day being your accessory lifts, okay? And typically, how I like to program is that the first day of the week, that's your main strict overhead pressing work. That's where you're going to go in, and we're looking for that day you be your strongest on the strict overhead press. The second day, that's where we're going to incorporate some of the accessory exercises we are going to talk about, where yes, it's still an intense day. We're still training with the focus of improving our overhead press, but maybe the exercises we choose are not as fatiguing. Maybe we're not standing strict overhead press. Maybe we're doing a seated overhead press. Maybe we have higher reps, more sets, or whatever allows us to make sure that first day is going to be our main training day, and then a second day just being an accessory day to support that first, all right? The overhead press. Lastly, let's talk about the accessory exercises we can use to improve our overhead press. All right, guys, I have a few different exercises here to help you with your accessory movements to improve your strict overhead press and pick up a man and throw him 20 feet in front of you. Now, when we're choosing accessory exercises, we want to pick where our limiting factor is within that movement. If it's the bar path, if you're having a hard time with that J pattern, maybe something like a pin press would help. Setting the pins up, not where the weight is in your shoulders, but you're able to start from that starting position with the weight on the pins, press and practice that movement pattern over and over again. Focusing down on the eccentric as you lower that bar, that can help too. A push press even. Because the first part of that movement is very similar to that of a strict press, as long as you're not keeping your elbows up, if you can hold it into your strict press position and then practice from there, we are able to overload the movement and we're able to go through that beginning portion, the most difficult portion of the movement, a little bit faster, so you have to pick up on it, all right? And then 2, using different bars. You can use a standard power bar, you can use an axle bar, you can use even like a football bar, different implements, but practicing the same movement pattern over and over again, right? If you're feeling a little bit worn out with a straight bar, going to a neutral grip bar allows you to practice that same movement pattern, or generally speaking, pretty close to it, but with putting a little different emphasis on different muscles in a different way, okay? Instability. Let's say you're pressing, you're shaking all over the place, and you feel like the strength is there, but you just feel very unstable when you press overhead. Shoulder dumbbell presses to increase the stability in the shoulders. Very important. You can do this seated or standing. A Z press, where you're sitting down on your butt on the ground, and then you're pressing from there. We're taking the legs out almost. We have to have a good core control in order to Z press efficiently. And of course, we can use different bars too. But for a lot of you guys, the bar path and instability is not going to be the issue. It's really just the strength of your shoulders and your triceps, okay? If it's your shoulders, that bottom portion of the lift that's really limiting you, seated barbell shoulder presses are going to be great because we're increasing the stability and we're really just focusing on that shoulder movement. After that, we could use a dumbbell shoulder press. This way I can get a bigger stretch at the bottom, bring those weights down a little bit more. It's again really focusing on developing that shoulder. Pausing the shoulder press at that bottom position so we have more time under tension to increase mass and size in the shoulders. And of course, something like an incline barbell press too, for the similar reasons of a seated overhead press. If we bring that seat down a little bit more, make it more like 45 degrees. Yes, we're gonna get some upper chest fibers, but just because we're leaning back, we're still developing and using some chest in our overhead press. So doing incline presses to increase stability, increase the amount of weight you can move could be very vital, very beneficial. If you have a hard time with your triceps, on the other hand, push pressing is a great option. We're able to use more weight, and that load doesn't really become much of a factor until we hit our triceps at lockout, right? Pin pressing, again, we're taking the load off the bottom position, so maybe not the best thing for the shoulders, but pin pressing from different heights can really help develop whatever that area, your sticking point, and put more emphasis on developing the triceps. Close grip benching, obviously great tricep movement, and any overhead tricep extension movement. Yes, you could do push downs, yes, you could do like dumbbell skull crushers, but if we want to make it more akin to our overhead press, doing things like French press, behind the neck French press, overhead pressing, single arm dumbbell pressing, cable work over in the overhead position where the tricep is most stretched is going to be very beneficial for bringing up your overhead press. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really helps me out here. And also go visit my website, tankstrengthcoaching.com. You can pick up some merch, and if you're interested in taking your performance to the next level, we can talk. All right, see you guys soon.